want to start this?
Sure, man.
I don't know if she's put a intro on there.
Sure, man. I'm just so glad to see you to start with. Just always happy to see you, man.
Happy to see you too.
And I'm so glad you're so busy. I mean, my God, the irons you got in the fire are just, I hope you can pull it all off.
Well, I hope so too. I feel like, you know, I don't know, in our business, it seems like just by default, you're flying by the seat of your pants.
You're right. You're right, man. And I think you got the right idea. Just stir up as much as you can, you know, but don't stretch yourself too thin to where your quality goes down.
Yeah, that's always,
you know what I mean?
That's like the, you know, that's the challenge, I think.
Yeah.
And it's also like, you know, kind of some time when the music we make, it's kind of a little bit the dance between art and commerce. You want to make the music that's super important to you and that you feel has value. But unfortunately, that's not always...
Don't necessarily cross over into radio
or success.
Streaming or...
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, that's the problem all true artists have.
I think so. But my idea is like, if it's like great people and great music, that's like, then the money is like the third element. I guess ideally they all come together. But if the first two, if that works out, at least like, that's like all I need.
The other will come.
Yeah, and I can hang with great people who make good music for a lot less money, but to have to endure not great people and not great music, it needs a lot of money to make up for it.
I understand, man. I do understand. It's like sometimes you have to try to polish a turd.
Yeah, and my goal is to not really ever, or as little as possible, get into that corner, you know.
Right.
Because it's just not worth it. It also feels like...
It's painful, man.
It's painful, and we get like satisfaction from the great music and the great hangs, and to me it almost like ruins what this music thing is all about if that element is not there.
You're true. You're very true, man. And then you start questioning, well, man, am I wanting to do this or not? Or be involved with this, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Back off or whatever, you know, and was that time wasted and that money wasted, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I know me, like, you know, my health challenge and you and age and like time, you know, time is the valuable stuff.
Yes,
and you don't really want to waste time or endure time that's sucky, you know.
You're right.
If you can help it.
You're exactly right, man.
But you've been around so much great music, and even before we ever met, I was so enamored with, well, Muscle Shoals music in general, and then your body of work in particular. And the one thing that people might not even know as much is like all you've done, that like the scope of stuff that you've done. That's not normal, okay? That's not normal. You're a great songwriter, or you're a great musician, you're a great engineer, maybe two things.
Yeah, I understand.
But you are one of the few people, and there are not very many others that I can think of, you know, worldwide, certainly not around here. There's like, oh, well, he is a hit songwriter. He played on hits. He engineered hits. He produced hits. He went out with a killer voice, fronting world-class bands.
Yeah.
You know, to have that all in one person, that is fairly rare. And I know it comes with its challenges too when you're pulled in many directions.
Pretty bizarre, man. But it's just something you got to do. It's something you want to do, and you feel it, and you know you can do it. And sometimes it's like, man, you ought to concentrate on one or two of the things, which I'm doing now mostly, is writing and playing if I get called for sessions.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not engineering much anymore, and I'm not producing anything lately. But the writing is the most important thing for me. And if anybody wants to know really who I am, I'm a songwriter.
Yeah.
And everything else just came along with that, you know. And that just seems to be what my calling is.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me, but after you were already really established around fame in a like multi-capacity way, as a player, as a writer, as an engineer slash producer, as part of that crew, and you got your offer to go to Muscle Shoals Sound in an engineer position, that you kind of were at a crossroads, that like on one hand you really kind of were intrigued by the offer and I think flattered, but also you knew that it would mean that some of your other hats would have to stay on the rack.
You're right. You're exactly right. And I knew what they wanted and needed. And I didn't want to be just that. Because I already had a good writing career going, a production career, an engineering career, playing on sessions at Fame. I mean, I was doing everything there. And I would only get to do one thing over at Sound, which would have been working on all those great records they did over there. But I would have lost myself in that 16, 18-hour day of sitting behind that console, man, And I just had to turn them down. My brother, I wanted to go with my brother so bad. And they wanted me to, but Jerry Masters went instead of me. And I stayed and did my thing, and I'm glad I did. And later I came back from Atlanta and signed as a songwriter with Sound, and so we kind of had a reunion there, and then I started playing on a regular basis with the Swampers. I was part of the Swampers rhythm section for a good while on everything. So it kind of worked out, Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about that, maybe we can circle in on a few of the, maybe the most significant projects you were part of as a player over there. Not necessarily the most, successful, but like for you. But I think one we probably can't really get around is Dillon Slow Train coming up.
Oh yeah, man, that was such an honor for Wexler to call me, and I said, Jerry, when he was down here for a thing at the Hall of Fame, and we were coming, I said, where is he? He's in the bed. He's in the bathroom. Well, I went in the bathroom and searched him down, and I said, Jerry, man, I just want to thank you again for hiring me to do that Dillon gig, man. And he said, no question in my mind, you got the best feel. Barry wanted Tom Rohde because Barry was a Rohde fan. I mean, just a freak for Rohde. And he never really gave me a chance to work on his stuff. But Wexler said, you got the best feel, and that's what I want. And I went in there and gave him what he wanted. When Bob and Jerry came in and sat down, and it was just those three, the engineer and those two, I went in and I said, Bob, welcome to Muscle Shoals. And he said, thank you. And that's the only conversation we got to have. And I really wanted to talk to him, but there wasn't time. They had to split as soon as we got the overdubbing done. But I was so honored to play on that record, man, And Jerry was one of a kind, and I loved him. And he's the godfather of Muscle Shoals.
Yeah. Yeah. So are there any other memories that stick out from the Muscle Shoals Sound years?
Well, Tony Joe White album I got to play on, the whole album, and did a lot of it live and an overdub on it. And Tony Joe is just so much fun to work with. He's just so soulful and such a cool album. We cut a great album on him. The best album he ever had, we cut on Tony Joe, man. And of course, all the Oak stuff and, all the great stuff over there, man, that I got to play on. It's hard to pick one out, And over at Fame the same way. There was just so many great sessions over there, man. Etta James. I mean, no sooner than I'd hit the building and gone to work over there, we had Etta James coming in, and I got a song cut,
Yeah.
on Etta James. And but Pickett, man, was the fun guy.
Okay.
I mean, we had more fun cutting Wilson. I have to say, it was always a joy, man, to cut Wilson Pickett.
Yeah.
And he was a hero of mine, and I've been singing his songs for years with my bands. And now I'm in the room with the guy, you know, and it's wonderful.
What made him unique was like the energy he contributed.
Yeah, man, he was just so full of. Let's see, where's they called him the? Let's see, what did he call him? The black cat or the black leopard or something like that. And he really was like that, man. He was just, but he was so full of it, man. He'd bring you up just walking in the room, you know, which Otis was that way. I mean, Otis Redding could walk in a room and you didn't even know he was coming in. And you just felt something. You felt the hair on your body rise up and you look around and it's big, you know, and he just had that thing, man, and Pickett had it too.
Yeah. So, what about Otis? I mean, I know he never cut like an album on himself here.
No, but he did Arthur Conley.
Yeah.
And produced Arthur Conley, and you know, I forget how many sides, 4 or 5, I think we did. And Sweet Soul Music, and just some of those great things he cut. And boy, Otis wrote him. I mean, man, I ain't even gonna say what he called him and what he told him, but he wrote him like he'd never been in a studio or never sung a song. Otis was all over him. Man, you can do better than that. Come on, man. You know, and he got it out of him. He got it out of him. But I'm gonna tell you, Otis Redding was a great potential producer. I mean, he just really was. Even if I figured once his artist career slowed down a little bit, that's what he would have done. And I can see Otis, I mean, this may sound crazy, but I can see Otis Redding being another Quincy Jones in the R&B field.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have built a company around himself and his talent and ability.
Yeah.
He really could have.
Yeah.
And I go, man, God, if he'd only lived another 10 years, what would we have heard out of him?
Yeah. You know, it's like, you know, Sam Cooke was like successful doing it, but then his life cut too short, and it's fairly similar as far as the trajectory, I think, when it comes to Otis, because he was at the peak of his power.
He was.
His biggest hit happened after
he'd passed, Dock of the Bay. I've sung that about 1 million times, and it just, God, David Hood called me early in the morning and said, Mickey, Otis went down in a plane. And I said, no, man, no, don't tell me that. And it hadn't been but a few weeks since they were here.
Yeah.
And the pilot was here with him that went down with him. And Otis's wife was here with him. And, you know, and I'm going, oh my God, not the big O. And they say that Otis wanted to fly the plane. And the pilot turned it over to Otis, and the pilot went to sleep. And Otis didn't know to switch tanks. And the pilot didn't tell him, you know, there's a time when you have to switch tanks to the other gas tank. And he didn't do it, and they went down, man, in that cold lake. It just killed me, man, when David called me and told me that.
Yeah. Was Otis here just once, or was he here a few times?
He was only at Fame one time. Now, I don't know if he was at Sound later.
I don't think so,
I don't
because
think so.
They didn't start Sound till after he passed.
That's true. You're right.
Because I think he passed like in 67, and they started.
That sounds right.
69, something like that.
Yeah.
But so on that same trip, then somehow Rick got him to to do a little demo on You Left the Water running.
He did, and I can still see him sitting on the steps there in front of the control room. And he had Rick's old J50 Gibson. And Otis had to tune it to open E because he just bar chorded. He couldn't, you know, and that's why none of the songs he ever wrote had a minor in it.
And that's like Dock of the Bay makes a whole lot of sense when you know that.
Yeah.
Because it's all the major chord up and down the neck.
That's the way he played, and that's the way but his rhythm and his sense of time was immaculate. And to hear him sing that thing was just wonderful, sitting there, just standing there in the studio watching him do that. And we weren't even recording. He was just running it down, sitting on the step. You know, and I'm going, man, this is Otis Redding.
Yeah. But that song got transferred to a record after he passed away. Were you guys part of turning that, just him on acoustic and singing, into record, or was that done somewhere else?
I was not part of it. I can't remember the story on it. It's what happened later. I think it might have happened. Some of it might have happened at Fame. I just don't know. I wasn't involved with it after the initial sessions, you know, with Rick and Arthur. But I can't really tell you the full story about how that thing got developed. But man, just to hear him play that, just him and that acoustic guitar was just wonderful.
Yeah. And then I guess on that same trip, he also played a few songs he just written.
Yeah. I can't remember any of them, but I do remember him doing that.
Yeah, and there was a tape that ran when he did that.
Oh, there was?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, man. I never heard of him.
According to David Hood.
Okay.
And this is public knowledge.
David would know, man.
Yeah, so Rick was there and he played like 3 or 4 songs. And then Rick was like, oh, there's not a good one on this. And he threw the tape into the trash can. And David picked it up.
He picked it. I knew that part of the story.
And then later, I think when Steve Bassett came into town to make a record, they resurrected one of those songs and had them like published for Zelda, like Redding, the Widow.
Right.
And I guess put it on a Steve Bassett record.
Yeah.
But,
and Bassett wrote a couple of songs together. I can't tell you the titles, but we wrote some together at one point, you know, when he was coming to town, and that was a good record that he cut, man.
Yeah.
And he could sing.
Yep, and play.
Yeah, he was a good keyboard player too.
So another record is one of my favorite of yours. Well, you were being involved in that might have been one of the first ones where I actually saw your name as like on the credits. And that's that Solomon Burke record for Bell.
Man.
It was called Proud Mary, I think.
Man, yeah, and Solomon cut one of my songs.
Yeah.
And I'm
Don't wait too long, right?
Well, yeah. And that was the B-side of Etta's record.
Okay.
You know, and I'm going, man, I just get here and I got a song on Etta James, and Solomon's coming in, and he's going to more or less produce himself with our help, and he's looking for a song, and he liked that song and he cut it and killed it, and I'm going, man, I got a song with Solomon Burke now, you know. So it was coming together, and we had so much fun cutting Solomon, man. He told so many stories.
You remember anything?
Yeah, man. He and his band would be on the bus touring. And the guys would start saying, Solomon, man, we starving. We got to stop and eat. Solomon said, no, we got to make the gig, man. Ain't no stopping. What he did was, he'd gone to the grocery store before the bus ever left and bought a bunch of bologna and bread. And he'd say, food's right here, gentlemen. Come up here and get your sandwich right now. and he'd charge the band for the sandwich. I don't know how much. He wouldn't stop the bus, but he'd sell them food.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, he was a preacher, and and man, when you hear him sing some things, you can hear the preacher in him. But he was a trip, really was.
Yeah. So you mentioned Solomon singing your song or deciding to record your song, but I think what was fairly common at that time was you knew who was going to come in to cut.
Yeah.
And knowing or not knowing they needed songs, but knowing they're going to be here, like, okay, let's come up with something for Solomon, or let's come up with something for Etta.
That's the way
Tell me a little bit about that dynamic and what that did to your creative, soul.
Rick would always tell us, look, I got so-and-so coming in. We need some songs. And that's where we got into the habit of writing for an artist instead of just writing free like we write, which is the most natural way to write, and the way I've been enjoying it now for so many years. But we'd write for the artist, and we'd cut a demo as close to the artist would do it as possible, and we went so far as to get somebody that sounded even close to them. I mean, like if it's a chick artist, we'd get a black chick singer, and if it was a male black artist, we'd get somebody to sing it, like George Soule or one of the guys from Memphis, one of our writers from Memphis, I mean, we went all the way to make that thing so appealing, to the artist and to Rick. And that's how we got some cuts. Because, I mean, Rick was determined to get songs out of his publishing company on those records, but he didn't just throw them on there just to have the publishing. I mean, it had to be a really good song. He'd cut anybody's song if it was a good one.
Yeah.
His whole thing was, I want to make a hit record, and if it turns out to be some of my publishing, wonderful. If it don't, wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, he even went to the extent like the song Patches,
Oh.
which was like a completely different song, but he almost like thought that was, I think, his theme song to a certain degree.
It was, because he grew up. He knew that story. He grew up really poor. And he grew up knowing about that. And you're right, that song, when you think about Rick, if you've known Rick, and you that's why he loved that production and that song and Clarence doing it and the story, because it was his story too, a lot of it, And God, we worked, I don't even know how many days we worked, weeks, I guess, on that record.
Yeah.
I mean, we really did, man. And boy, what a record.
Yeah, that's a good one. So you just briefly said, oh, we got some of our Memphis writers to sing a song. Now, one of those Memphis writers was the one, the only
George Jackson. That's right, he's my man.
And who I got to know and collaborate with even before we met, actually.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a gift, seems like a gift from heaven to me now.
Oh, George was my brother, and I miss him so much, man.
Yeah.
We wrote so many good songs that are in that catalog that are, I guess, EMI's got them.
Yeah. Do you remember first meeting him, and do you recall why the two of you got paired up in the first place as a writing team?
I met George when he came down from Memphis one time to do some demo. He had signed to Rick. He was signed to Rick, and I was too. And he'd signed before I did. He was already signed. And along with a bunch of other black writers, I mean, everybody came to George with a piece of a song, and he'd finish it up for them. And we wound up signing a lot of them. I mean, we had a busload of writers from Memphis, all coming down doing demos, and I'd produce them. And George play on them and sing most of them, you know. But George had come down to do some demos of his new latest batch of songs. And I just loved him, man. I loved everything about him just instantly. We got along. Just got along great. And we said, man, we need to write something. And we get together over at this old motel over in Sheffield that's still there. It was a real cheap room.
Not the Hillcrest.
Is that the name of it?
That's the
one on the left.
Almost across from Muscle Shoals Sound.
No, not that one. You know, Elvis stayed there.
Oh, really?
When he came to town in the 50s, he stayed there.
Okay.
That's their claim to fame. This one is the motel if you go into Florence and you keep on going and you nearly get to the bridge and it's on the left over there.
Okay.
And it's a pretty good sized little complex.
Yeah.
Anyway, the rooms were pretty cheap and we'd put George in there. And me and George would take the Wurlitzer over there and I'd bring my guitar. And there was a bootlegger that stayed there permanently in an end room down on the ground level. And we'd be on the ground level about 3 doors down. Me and George would go down there and get us a half a case of cold beer. We'd go back to the room and we'd sit and talk a little while and have a beer and talk about ideas. If somebody had a hook, and we usually came in there with a hook already, one of us or both of us. And we'd say, well, which one you like to work on, man, best or first? And that's the way we'd do it. And George, he'd noodle around on the piano and have a little groove, you know, or I'd have a groove on the guitar and we'd go with that. And then we'd start writing. We'd get the hook and write a great chorus. And then we'd start working on the verses, just, you know, back and forth, back and forth. And we'd be working on them right up till the demo time, you know. But I'd stay over there half the night, an awful lot of nights, man, working with George on those songs. And then we'd come in the next day and demo, you know, just put them down. The band was, you know, on a draw. I mean, the band was getting paid to be there anyway. So we had a built-in band.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, okay, we're going to cut some new songs, y'all. And they'd be there at 9:30. And we'd go to work and cut till 6 or later, a lot later usually. But that's the way me and George did it. We wouldn't talk before he came down about what we were going to do. We just had planned to write. And then we'd get together and say, well, what do you got in your notebook? Well, here's what I got. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I like that, man, you know. And here we go.
Yeah. And just maybe as a little add-on for people who don't know, this was a dry county back in the day. So that's why the bootlegger was kind of important. And it was not just the gas station where you got a bit, you know.
That's right. It was dry as a bone. And that's the only place you could buy anything from a legger. And George was a beer drinker, totally a beer drinker. And I was too then. I didn't drink much hard liquor. Still don't. But we'd get that cold beer, man, and it wouldn't take but a couple of beers, and we'd get a groove. We'd get into it with each other and pick that hook that we both liked, and somebody would spit a line out, and here we go, you know.
Yeah. Did you usually demo everything you wrote, or did you have to pick, did you have the luxury of demo everything, or did you have to pick a few, could only bring in a few? How did that work?
We'd put it down on a little tape recorder there in the bedroom, there in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Little recorder with a little microphone that Rick bought all the writers, a little cassette player,
yeah,
and a little microphone. And we'd put it down there and keep working on it until we got what we thought the band needed to hear. And we'd take that in and play it. And for the most part, we demoed everything we wrote. I mean, you know, unless we knew if it wasn't together, we didn't try to demo it.
Sure.
Until we worked on it some more. But most of the time we went in there, we knew we had something and we wasn't wasting time, you know.
Were you pretty quick too as far as come up with stuff
Yeah, man. And of course the band was so great. They all came up with these great arrangement licks and whatever, you know, and it's just a matter of having a good song and George singing it and me engineering it and playing some stuff, overdub some stuff, and you know, if it was a pop song, I'd sing some of them. George would sing most of the R&B stuff unless it was a chick song, you know. And
if he was somebody else, would one of you sing a pilot and then like a female will come in and overdub, or would you have that person
George
for the demos?
George would be on the original little cassette thing, and we'd give that to her and let her work with it, you know, and give her time to work with it, and then we'd find her key and work with her till she felt comfortable with it, and then get the vocal down. And a lot of times we wouldn't get the great vocal, but we'd bring them down the next trip, and we'd go back in and redo the vocal, you know.
I see.
Because she didn't have enough time to learn it.
Yeah. So around the time you started at Fame, you know, the musicians were, you know, largely Roger Hawkins, David Hood, Jimmy Johnson. Then you had Spooner there, I guess, a lot in the beginning, and then Barry became part of it. I know Marvell Thomas was a part of like that Etta James record.
Yeah, Marvell was our keyboard player for a good little while, and we'd cut a lot of times on Sundays, and I'd go to the bus station, the Greyhound station over in Florence, and pick him up coming from Memphis, and we'd go in, and Marvell was a good piano player, man, and we used him a lot till we got Barry, you know, and then Clayton, but and Spoon was around all the time, and then I'd take, when we get through late at night, I'd take Marvell back to the bus station, and he'd catch the bus back to Memphis, you know.
So, but then the majority of those guys left to start their own studio, and there was a new band needed. At Fame. Can you tell me a little bit about the origin story of the Fame gang?
Well, Junior Lowe was still there. Junior had been there. I mean, you know, Junior was always part of Fame. And we used a lot of different guitar players, lead players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know them all. We can go on and on about how many great guitar players worked with us. But we had, well, when the guys left and we had to start over and put the Fame gang together, Clayton came up from Pensacola. Ronnie Eads came up from Pensacola. Jesse Boyce came up from Pensacola. And they were all working for Papa Don Schroeder for Bell Records down there in Pensacola. And basically, they were cutting down there. Well, we just stole his band. He used to come up and work with us. I engineered a lot for him. Papa Don was a trip, man. He'd work you to the bone, because he'd only come in for the weekend. And he'd have all these sides and 3 or 4 artists he wanted to cut in 2 days and 2 nights. And he'd bring this jar of pills with him, man, and set them on the console. And he'd say, boys, every time you see me take one, y'all better take one, because we're going to be here. And we worked, I'm serious, we'd work 18 hours. And then just get enough sleep to crawl back in there the next day, this Sunday morning, and start all over again. And when he'd leave there, I would have mixed all those sides, not just cut the tracks, but mixed them. And mix them down and make him 7.5s. And he'd take the master and the 7.5s. And when he left, he had his finished product with him under his arm in 2 days, you know. It nearly killed us, man.
Oh, I bet.
But the Fame gang, you know, Clayton was there, and Junior Lowe, and Jesse Boyce was incredible, and Ring.
How did you find him?
Clayton knew him.
Oh, I
from
didn't know
working from working down there in Pensacola.
So he was down from there too.
Yeah.
I somehow have thought he was like maybe a Nashville guy or something.
Well, he could have been in Nashville some, but he came from down there working for Don,
Oh,
just like Clayton was and Ronnie was.
Okay.
And so we got a rhythm section together. We'd have different guitar players. Travis, Tippy Armstrong played with us some. Of course Dwayne Allman and Larry Byram. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. And of course Jimmy Johnson would he'd still come around sometimes and play rhythm, but he was too busy over there at the other place, But we always used Junior as a rhythm player, and he always came up with these little double stop licks and things. But we'd have another lead player. We always used 2 guitar players.
Yeah.
And usually 2 keyboard players.
So
one playing that old funky organ, and Clayton on the piano and Spoon on the organ.
Okay.
Or the Wurlitzer. Spoon was the master of the Wurlitzer, man.
Oh,
that little funky organ.
Yeah.
He had that thing down.
I know, but I didn't quite. For some reason, I thought Spooner was already off to Memphis by the time Clayton arrived. I didn't know that overlap.
Well, he played a little bit, and then he was off to Memphis with Dan. Working with Dan at Beautiful Sound.
Yeah.
I'd call Dan late at night. I'd be still over in my studio, Fame Studio in Memphis, and I'd call Dan over to his studio, and he'd go, "Beautiful."
Dan Penn.
Yeah, and he'd call me sometimes late at night before he had a studio. There was this little funky studio, and I forget the guy's name, but the studio was called Lynn Lou Studio, and it was just a funky little tape. I think it was a 3-track and a couple of mono machines, And Dan would be in there. He'd work something out with the guys. He could go in there late at night and demo some of his songs. And he'd call me up and say, "Mickey, man, can you come over here and engineer this thing for me? I'm trying to put this song down and I'm running back and forth, trying to get levels and blah, blah, blah." And I'd go over there and hang with him half the night, and we'd put some demos down. And I remember Spooner one time. Spoon had worked out a thing with Quinn that he was going to go into Quinn's studio by himself and do some demos. And Spoon called me one night and said, "Mickey, man, can you help me out? I'm having trouble overdubbing on this thing, and I'm trying to get this good new song down, and I keep messing up and erasing what I'm doing." So I got over there, and Spoon was trying to overdub on a mono tape.
Yeah, it's not gonna go that well.
He put a part down and go out there and turn the tape on and run out there and play and erase what he'd already done. I said, "Spoon, you got to go to another track, brother," But just stuff like that, man, was wonderful time.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I don't know who this could be. All right.
Well, it's great to be back with you here, Mickey, my friend and
brother.
Mentor and a funky, soulful dude I can learn from. I was so flattered. I mean, I'm flattered just being your friend, to be honest. But also, you're the nickname donor, here. Like you come up with good names for your buddy.
My people, yeah.
And
it's too formal for me to call.
Well, yeah. First
name.
you like, you named me Bro Dre, which I was flattered, and then knowing how important your Native American heritage is to you.
Yes.
And being able to go to a powwow with you You actually found an Indian name for me too, Adado Esquire.
Yeah.
I was so flattered. I was like, oh, that's so incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, you my bro, and that's just the way I like to do it. I like to make friends with people and get to be real good friends with people, and not just fair weather friends. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
But I have acquaintances, but I have good friends. And I just don't feel right calling them formally their first name. It's just something about it rubs me wrong, man. And most guys I've got a name for, you know. I mean, like we called
Clayton, Clyde,
and I call him Clanging Ivories, and you know, he's got 3 or 4 names, man, and of course Ring Eye, you know, they called him that before he ever came down from Nashville.
Okay.
They were calling him Ring Eye, and Johnny Sandlin started calling Jesse Boyce Jabbo.
Okay.
And so if you hear Jabbo, and you'll hear it from some other people, I'm sure, along the way, Jabbo was Jesse Boyce.
Yeah, and then Johnny was the duck.
Johnny was the duck. That's right. Yeah.
And Dwayne was the Sky Man or the Sky Dog.
Sky Man at first from Pickett. That was a thrill, man. Watching that go down, just us 3 standing there. And Pickett started jumping up and down, man, and singing, hollering high, you know, and said, Sky Man, Sky Man. And Dwayne was bottling way up. You know, he said, this is the way we can do Hey Jude. He wasn't going to do it until Dwayne got to doing that stuff, and he got him in it, man. And that was a great record. I know the Beatles had to be thrilled when they heard Pickett's version of that.
Yeah.
They just had to be, man.
Yeah, that was like, you know, the kind of song you wouldn't necessarily associate with somebody like Pickett, but then kind of once it all came together, it really made sense.
Well, like the stuff I cut on James Govan in Memphis. I produced 4, 5, 6 sides on Govan in Memphis. George knew Govan and brought him to me, and I picked out some songs, and I said, man, he sounds so much like Otis. What would I do if I had a chance to cut some songs on Otis Redding? And I picked out some Beatles songs, Something in the Way She Moved. I mean, I knew it would be a wonderful, wonderful thing to hear him sing that song, and man, he did. And I brought that stuff down to Rick, and he loved it, but of course he had to recut it all because he had to be the publisher on it. I mean, the production guy on it, you know. But I got credit for some production involved with James, but man, I just could hear him doing some pop stuff like Otis would do it, you know, instead of just getting down in the garbage with the Stax thing, you know. I said, no, man, I want to do something different with James. And we did. And this band that I snatched out of a club and put together from a studio band was James Hooker, James Brown initially, and James Hooker, you know, and
Amazing Race Mazes later.
And and you know, he brought their bass player and their keyboard player and a guitar player from that band. The name of the band was, the singer was a big tall guy, and his name was Rick Nelson, but it wasn't the other Rick Nelson, but he could really sing. But I took the other 4 guys and brought them in the studio, and I said, y'all want to cut some tracks, man, sometime? Yeah. So I brought them in, and I don't know if any of them besides James had ever been in a studio, but that was one of the first projects we did was Govan. And man, they knew those songs. I mean, they played them and that stuff sounded great. Fred Prouty was the drummer in that club band, and Rick took my band when he heard the stuff I'd done on Go Band. He brought my band down here. He got Hooker, and he got Prouty, you know, and brought them down here. But I used Maybon Hodges and, you know, quite a few of the Memphis guys.
Yeah.
On different stuff up there.
And was that done when Fame had a studio up there for a little while?
Yeah, yeah. You know, it just, the timing was not right. It really wasn't right. There was no custom business going on anywhere. There was in-house production going on over American, of course, with Elvis and, you know, all that stuff. But there wasn't any custom business coming to knock on the door. And, you know, it was useless for me to go scurrying around Memphis trying to get somebody to come over and record in the studio. I mean, there wasn't any publicity, you know, and it wasn't really a strong effort to get a lot of business in there, but that just wasn't my thing. I mean, my thing was producing stuff and engineering stuff and co-writing songs, you know. And Sonny, Rick wanted me to come back down here and work with him again, come back and work. So Sonny went to Memphis
Sonny Limbo.
and started running the studio that I had established. And Sonny was more of a salesman, less of a songwriter, less of a producer, less of an engineer, but he was a salesman, you know. And we never did really make a dent in Memphis up there, but the thing that was paid, more than paid for it, was all the demos that I did on all the Memphis writers that we had.
Yeah.
And we did them nearly every day. I mean, at one time we had 21 writers, and 19 of them were from Memphis. Me and Barbara Warwick were the only two white ones.
Okay.
And lighter shade of pale, you might say. We wasn't white, we were just a little lighter shade of pale. But I would do those demos, man. George would get with these guys and work the songs out and rewrite them. Come in the studio and we'd demo, just demo after demo. I'd come down here with a car full of demos, man, you know. And that studio paid off because the songs that got cut, that got demoed and arranged and put down in Memphis, got cut at Fame on Rick's artists.
Yeah.
You know, so it more than paid for itself. Just, if nothing else, a publishing tool, you know.
Yeah. So one of the most intriguing sessions to me at Fame, where you were involved in, was when Ken Bolletto and his quintet came to town. Can you maybe kind of set the mood for like how that felt, or how that, you know, how that felt for you?
Scared me to death. When Rick told me, I mean, he was trying to get Capitol to send him some work, some business. And so they got Cannon to come down. And I didn't get word till the last minute. Oh yeah, Cannonball's coming down with his band. I'm going, gee. Yeah, because I'd never done a session like that before. I mean, you know. And everybody got there and nobody said anything to each other. They just came in, brought their instruments, and they spotted where the bass went, and the drummer got in the booth, and, you know, and I told Cannon, I said, well, here's where we usually do horns. We set them across in front of the guitar players with a baffle between, and we just do from low to high, left to right, you know, from barry to trumpet. And the keyboard players over here by the drum booth, blah, 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 and everything was cool with them. Nobody complained about the situation.
Okay, so I would think like their natural sense would be to take the drummer out and use it more like a live setting.
But
so that's not how they went?
No, he stayed in the booth, and the bass player, of course, was playing this beautiful old stand-up. And I hooked the mic up. I said, how do you want me to mic this? Because I knew he knew a lot of techniques I didn't know after recording as much as he had. He said, let's get one of those pencil mics. You know, that's what I call them. EVs, they're about so big, about that long. And he said, get some rubber bands, and we're going to rubber band it on both sides, and we're going to put it in the hole on the bridge, pointing up toward the neck. And so I did that. But the cord was laying up against the bass, and when he'd play, it would vibrate. And I said, we can't have that. He said, well, tape it down. I said, I can't put tape on that bass. Oh, yeah, you can. Come on, man. And he had to beg me to tape that bass. I hated to put duct tape on that bass. But I did on the bottom just to keep that cord from rattling. Yeah. And that was the only adjustment I had to make. Everybody else was just, and they already knew what they were going to cut. They didn't talk about which songs we're going to do or which one after that. I said, Cannon, how you want me to approach this? He said, turn the tape on and keep it running. So I got 3 reels of tape out, or 4, multi-track tape. Plus,
was it 8-track at that point?
Yeah. And I, you know, I got them all ready, got them out of the box and spliced a leader head on them, you know, and got them stacked up and ready to go. And I had some 2-track running, and I had me a stack of those ready to go. And so when he got ready to go, he just gave me the nod, and I punched record on the machines, and here they go, man. And I mean, it was just, all I had to do was get a balance on the horns mainly. Everybody else they just knew how to play. And it wasn't anything to get a balance on them. It really wasn't. I just was hoping.
They mixed themselves.
I was praying I could get the horn section to please Cannon, you know, and I did. And after we cut a few, he said, well, let's take 5. And he came in and said, let me hear a little bit of what we're doing. And I did, and he said, man, it's great, perfect. Just keep the tape running.
Yeah.
So he went back out. They looked around at each other. I put her in the red. Here they go again. And just play, man, play. And they only did 1 take on anything.
How long do you think they were working in the studio? A day?
Oh, yeah, maybe 8 hours.
Okay.
Maybe 8.
So, I mean, there must be somewhere those tapes was probably, you know, a dozen.
I don't know how many songs we cut. I can't remember.
But it it felt like an album, not just like two songs.
I thought it was going to be an album.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. You know, but man, I just hated it so bad that I didn't run a mono, at least for myself, to have a copy of those things.
Yeah.
Because I've never heard the stuff since we recorded it.
Never came out.
Because he took the masters. No, he took the 7.5s, the 2 tracks, 15s with him, and I made a 7.5. He said, when we got through, he came in and he said, box the tapes up, send them to Capitol. And I got the titles from him, you know, and labeled everything real good and all that. And he said, well, that's it. We're gone. And they packed the shit up and left. And I'm sitting there going, oh man, I gave him everything we just did. I don't have anything to listen to, you know. But I was too busy to think, man, I'd like to have a copy of this when we get through, you know. Yeah. And he didn't wait around long enough for me to make a copy of anything. It was just take the 2-track right off the machine, you know, not leader the cuts or anything, just take it like it was. And I boxed up the multi-tracks and sent them to Capitol. And that's the last I ever heard of it, you know. But Harvey said that they took some of that stuff, like Preacher Man,
Country preacher.
Country preacher, yeah. And developed it from what we did there.
They released a live version
in the studio, and Harvey said that they did that stuff was beneficial that they came down and did, you know.
I'm still on a mission to find those tapes and have those released.
God, I'd love to hear that stuff, because it was that man. I mean, Zawa Newell, I think, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
He was playing the keyboards, man, you know, and I can't think of the drummer's name or the bass player's name right off. I just can't think of them, but boy, you know, Nat was there, Nat Adderley, and.
But Harvey told me that they used the horn the Fame Gang horn section on one of the tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that might have been Country Preacher.
You think so?
Harvey seems to think.
Well, he knows.
Because to me that was kind of unusual that you would augment what they already had and was working and what they did live.
Yeah. With
some additional players. So do you recall anything about maybe why that would have happened at all to add some of the local guys?
No, I don't. I really don't. I'm glad it happened. But I don't know whose decision. Obviously it had to be Cannon's decision. I mean, to augment his section. Nobody else would have told him to do it. You know, you don't tell him anything.
I would like to find out if it was like, you know, maybe just Harvey and Cat, you know, just, well, let's make this a 4-piece, or if they actually used the whole, you know, Fame section on top of it. I need to talk to Ronnie about it.
You know, they probably remember more than I do about that. Because I can't.
And then obviously the tape will probably tell us, too.
Oh,
if
yeah.
Can find that.
Absolutely, man. And God only knows where it could be out there in L.A. at Capitol, somewhere in a vault or thrown out, or who knows, man, you know, or Cannon may have had it stashed somewhere, I don't know. He might have bought the master, I doubt it.
If it didn't get destroyed in that fire they had, Universal Edison, it must be somewhere.
Yeah.
And it to me, this is a holy grail type of thing, because you don't just find an unreleased Ken Ball Adderley records from like the year of his prime.
Yeah.
I mean, he came off of Mercy Mercy into all that, you know, good stuff. That was like when he had hits.
Oh man,
you
yes,
know?
yes, they did, man. And I was just, like I said, I was scared to death when I first heard that Cannon was coming, because I had not recorded a group like that before, and very little stand-up bass ever before, you know. I mean, I wasn't worried about the horns or the drums or the bass, or the guitars, but once we got that bass worked out, man, and he just started playing, there wasn't anything to getting the level and a beautiful sound, and I would love to hear that stuff, man. I really would.
Yeah.
Just to see what we did. I mean, the songs that we did. I just hear those musicians play was just. I was so. Just, man. Once I got my mixes up, I was just sitting there on a cloud, just listening, man. That's all I could bring myself to do, is just sit back and listen to it. You know.
Yeah. You've probably never seen a photo, or that probably doesn't exist, you know, from that session.
No, there weren't any cameras in there. You know, that's the thing about Fame. It's such a shame, because Rick didn't want photographers in there and reporters in there. He just wouldn't let them in there unless it was an interview with him or something, picture of him in the control room. But it wasn't any getting together with the artist and taking a picture with the band, and it wasn't any ever. All those wonderful projects, and there's nothing to show it. I mean, you know, the pictures, we don't have them. Just don't have them, man.
Yeah.
I got that one great picture Where is it? Oh, no. Where is it? It's a great picture of me and Bumps Blackwell and Richard.
Little Richard and Clayton is on it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know where it is, but I've got it.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
But,
I know.
but that was a great
picture.
picture. And I'm sitting at the console and Rick's standing behind me. And Richard's standing there and Bumps is standing on
that's right.
his right. And I wouldn't take anything for that picture, man, you know. Because that album, The Real Thing, brought Richard Penniman back. His career was waning.
Yeah.
And that album, man, brought him back out of the grave. I mean, it really did.
Yeah. And then he fell in love with a lot of those musicians
And
too.
took them all on the road with him.
Yeah.
Took the whole band on the road with him.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Man, it was a trip though. Jesse said, yeah, he uses two of everything. I said, why? He said, he just wants that. He had two bass players, another keyboard player, two guitar players, two drummers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it sounded great when I heard them live.
Yeah.
They just had it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about that is if one is down for the count, there's still another one there.
Well, you're right. You're right. And I don't know what his thinking was on it, but they had to obviously work out some arrangements so everybody wouldn't be stepping on each other the whole time, A lot of times, they using two drummers, you just have one of them using the kick drum. And,
yeah,
so you don't confuse the whole issue.
Yeah.
One of them's playing fills and the other one's playing cymbals, and, and one guy's, or both of them are locked into the backbeat, but somebody does more cymbals, somebody does more toms, to make it all work together.
Yeah, I mean, the two bass players intuitively makes the least sense to me.
When I heard them, because I know how Jesse played. Jesse could take a song by himself and make it a record, because he played so much, but it was always good. It wasn't clutter stuff.
Yeah.
He was so melodic. He played melodies on the bass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm going, all right, now before I heard him live, I'm going in there and I sit down and I say, okay, I just want to know how this other bass player is going to stay out of Jesse's way. But Jesse obviously had to tone his stuff down.
Yeah.
And they worked it out, and it sounded good.
Yeah.
But they worked it out where somebody's holding down the bottom and Jesse's doing some of his stuff, and it worked out.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because Jesse was preaching at the time. And he wouldn't play with Richard if it was in Memphis or anywhere around where any of his church people could find out. They didn't know he was playing with Little Richard. I'm sure they found out seeing a special or something,
Yeah.
But he kept that as secret as he could for as long as he could.
Yeah.
He wasn't out there playing the devil's music, man.
Yeah. So, I know, when you got started to be, a professional musician, I guess around, I don't know, 67 or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And, that's now that's almost, a lifetime ago.
That's a long time ago.
And I know things have changed, so you don't only have the perspective of producer, engineer, musician, writer, but you also have the perspective of time.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I know that's probably hard to pick, but as far as the time that was not the most successful necessarily, but that seemed to work the most for you, or where you felt like you were the most Mickey?
Yeah.
What was that? From when to when do
I
you
can
feel
tell
like
you-
you were like?
I can tell you the year, and it was that way for all of us, not just me. 69 was our year in Muscle Shoals. That's the year Rick became the producer of the year. We cut all those hit records. We had, I think, 6 records in the charts at one time in the Hot 100, and a lot of them in the R&B charts, you know. But that year was the heyday, man. It really was, and it was mine too, because I was getting songs cut. I was writing good songs. I was playing. I was engineering. I was producing stuff. I was doing my thing, and we were having hit after hit. We all knew by then, when we went in there, we were going to come out with a hit record, because we'd done it repeatedly with Rick, you know, for months and months. And it was wonderful, man. It was wonderful. But you know, I started out, you talking about what I have done over the years. I started out as an artist, as a singer.
Mickey and the New Breed.
That's right. And I wrote the 2 songs we recorded and produced them and arranged them, played live and sung, and we cut them over at Quinn Ivy's studio.
Was that Silly Girl and Reflections of Charles Brown?
Well, it was Silly Girl in a long, long time.
Long time.
Was the B-side of Silly Girl. Then we did Reflections of Charles Brown, was our last record.
Okay.
We did a thing called Big Boy Pete that the Righteous Brothers had done.
Yeah.
We needed to cut some more sides, and I didn't have any more songs at the time. And we did that.
And
we had
17-year-old girl, which
17-year-old girl was a Hinton song, so we had 5. 17-year-old girl was a good record too, man.
Yeah.
A good record. Eddie just played his butt off on that. That guitar part he played on it, nobody's been able to play since.
And the harp was him too?
Yeah, that was Eddie playing harp.
Yeah.
And but our last record, Wexler picked us up and put us on Atco, you know, and put it out there. Man, we started getting airplay on the West Coast. Rick started getting calls. The records, we got picks in all the magazines. They started calling, wanting a bio on the band and pictures. Well, we had to put one together, and we did. Picture of the band and our little bio, such as it was, you know. And Rick shipped them out to all these black radio stations that are playing this record. And they saw me. They saw Whitey and found out I was the guy singing the song, and they pulled the record off the radio. But that's the way it was then, man. It was just reverse racism, you know. But man, that record was on the way. And I got calls from friends of mine out there, Barry Goldberg and some different people that were out there, and they said, God, we love this record, man. It's a wonderful record, you know. And we wrote it as far as it would go, and then they started pulling it.
Were those 5 sides that came out everything you ever cut, or did you overcut?
That's all we ever cut on the Breed. That's the only studio work we ever did.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I thought, Marlon was the one that told Quinn, I said, man, you need to cut some more stuff on these guys. This is good stuff, because I had practiced with these guys. I had made them rehearse, and we went in there. It just went smooth as silk on our first two songs. Of course, everybody had to learn the other ones, you know, but I think Marlon wanted Quinn to cut some more stuff. You know, of course, he was waiting on some action, at least one of those singles, to have some real action. And I think he would have.
Mm-hmm.
But the closest we got was Charles Brown. 17-Year-Old Girl, I thought, was a great record. a great record, man. I still love that song and our performance on it. Of course, that was studio band and me on that one. But I love that song and that record, man. I thought that would go somewhere too. I really did.
Yeah. So as far as the live repertoire of the band at that time, was the rest all covers, or did you write any other originals for the band?
No, it was all covers. Everybody wanted us to play what we played and what they loved and were used to, and that was R&B covers.
Yeah, and you did a lot of like frat.
We did some English. We did some English stuff too. You know, we did some of the Across the Pond stuff, Whiter Shade of Pale, and 4, 5, or 6 of those kind of things. And but that's what they hired us for, man. Playing all these proms and formals around here, and then going down on the coast and playing these frat things, and on campuses in Mississippi and Tennessee and Alabama and over in Georgia, so.
Yeah. But after the New Breed, and I know you kept performing as the New Breed over time, but as far as a recording act, you never really did that again on that level. Was there ever the temptation to try a solo thing, or try a band thing again, or try, to be a recording artist of some sort? Or were you just so happy behind the scenes that you're like, well, this is really what I want to do anyway?
I was so caught up in everything else I was doing at Fame, and I'm in show business. I'm working at Fame Studios with Rick Hall and this great band. So my little singing thing can just sit on the back seat, and I got so involved in all that, I never had the burning desire to make another record, I mean, I sang on all my demos, and a lot of them could have been records. But I never approached it as, okay, I'm going to do a project, or I'm going to get somebody to do a project on me as an artist. It just never came up again, man.
It's probably also a lifestyle choice to a certain degree. Will mean you would be gone a lot and probably had to maybe make a decision.
Yeah, I'd have to quit doing everything I was doing to go out and make it happen, and I thought about all that.
But you got to make a record as the Fame Gang. So, I mean, I know that didn't take you out of the studio at all,
right? But
still, that the Fame Gang album is a cool album, and some of the outtakes and the Grits and Gravy single, which I like even more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool that you... What was the idea behind making a record, or making the 45 and the album as Fame Gang?
Well, Rick, of course, we had got the new band together, and once Capitol, I guess Rick talked Capitol into letting us, he just wanted to get some business. He didn't know what was going to happen. He just said, I want you to produce this band. I want y'all to do these #1 records, do covers on these #1 records, y'all's way.
Okay.
And he didn't expect anything, I don't think. I mean, he was shocked when he heard some of the first stuff we did, and I took it up and played it for him, and it blew his mind, man. And so we lived down there. I was nearly dead, but we went to LA to present the record to Capitol, and I was so gone I couldn't even hardly talk to him. I was trying to sit up in the chair and keep from falling out. And instead of getting up and saying, I'm so proud to be here with y'all, A&R people at Capitol Records, and we were honored to make this record, I couldn't say anything, but we worked really hard on this, and I hope y'all like it. That's all I could say.
Yeah. But was like Booker T and the MGs, or what was like the template that's thinking, we should do? Do you remember any of that level went into it? Or or was it just like
We
Capitol needed something like that in their catalog?
I guess, I mean, we hoped, you know, and we named it the Fame Gang, excuse me, and we knew in our hearts, but we hoped that we could put that record out and go out behind it, like the Stax people, you know,
Yeah.
behind some of the Fame artists, even back then, but do our thing
Yeah.
too, you know. But Rick wouldn't let us go. No, I got to have you in the studio every day for my stuff. So that got completely shut down. We never got to go play a gig live as the Fame Gang. And that's such a shame, man.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if there's any, you know, footage of you guys working together.
I don't think so. I don't remember anybody with a camera in there.
Yeah, I think I might have seen just like a very brief, like black and white thing, you know, but like never like a few, you know, a proper, you know, thing on you guys.
Yeah, I wish, man. I wish we could have done it live somewhere in one of these little venues around here, one of the theaters or somewhere, and filmed it.
Yeah.
Recorded it. I really do. At least just one time, man. You know, but we're on a lot of records together. It's just not known that that's the Fame Gang, because the only people that ever got any attention was the Swampers.
Yeah.
And Rick didn't promote the Fame Gang. He promoted Rick Hall. And there's a lot of people that still don't know that we cut those records. They think everything was cut at Muscle Shoals Sound.
Yeah.
That's what they believe. That's all they know. You know.
Yeah. I still meet a lot of people. It's like, oh, you work at the Muscle Shoals studio. It's like, well, Muscle Shoals is technically a town, and it's even more complicated than that if you want to know the whole story. And there's always been more than one, you know, studio. But and people think it's down by the golfers. You know, there's so many misconceptions. Like, but still, I mean, thankfully, the record history is undeniable. And you like they say, when you're busy making history, you don't necessarily think about the value of it or think about documenting it.
No, you don't. You really don't. You don't have time. You just don't have time to consider all that. And like I say, with Rick's feelings and attitude about having any interference, we couldn't have. Now, if we could have gotten somebody in there and Rick was in his office and we were down there doing our thing and could have played our stuff live on the floor, you know, play our stuff that we cut on the album, just go through them and somebody film it, that would have been great.
Yeah.
But none of us ever thought of that. None of us ever thought about doing that, you know.
Yeah. So before we wrap this up with talking a little bit about what we have collaborated on musically, I would just love to talk a little bit about Levon Helm.
Oh man, that was such a thrill for me, man. I love Levon. And I met him the first time. I've always been a fan of the band. And the first time I even knew about the band, besides hearing the records on the radio, was I was flying to LA to do some strings on a project with Jimmy Haskell, who used to do just about all our string arrangements.
Yeah.
All right, we were going along and get off the plane, and I get in a cab and I'm heading to the studio, and all of a sudden I see this billboard. It's as wide as this wall and half again as tall, and it's all it's got on it is the band. And I'm going, wow, man. And these big black letters on a white background, you know. And I said, man, these guys are happening. And then the first time I met Levon was we used to have these seminars out at Wheeler Lodge.
Yeah.
Every year. This kind of publishing and production
sound. Yeah.
seminars, and people would come from Nashville and around Atlanta and around it.
Yeah,
You
Wexler
know.
was part of some of that.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn Fry.
Everybody
also.
would come, you know, and get a room, and we just took over the whole lodge, and have seminars and have music and just, you know, just a big time for, I forget how many days we ran that thing. It wasn't a week, but it was close to it. And I was standing out in front of the room, the hospitality suite of the Muscle Shoals Sound Hospitality Suite. I was standing out on the street in front of it, and all of a sudden this VW van pulls up. And I'm looking through the windshield, and I said, damn, that looks like Levon. And he gets out of the driver's side, and his wife gets out of the other side. And I go up and introduce myself, and he said, yeah, man, yeah, I know who you are. And blah, blah, blah. And I said, man, I just love y'all's music and blah, blah, blah. And your drum playing and all. He said, man, come here, I want you to check something out. So we go back, and he opens up the back doors of the van, and he's got 3 Virginia hams hanging, swinging on a rope, hanging on a bar. He said, every time I come anywhere this direction, I go through, and my friend smokes me some hams. And he took a big pocket knife out and go, whoosh. He said, try this out. And man, it was wonderful, you know. And the rest is history. Me and Levon just hit it off just great. And of course, him and Raj did too. And the other funny story about Levon is, when he set his little kid up, he very rarely, he didn't play a lot of toms, but he had this floor tom, and the whole top of the head was green. And what he used it for was a rolling table. He didn't hardly ever hit it. He just had his stuff laid out on that table, and he'd roll them up, you know. And I said, Levon, if you ever retire this drum head, all you got to do is soak this sucker in a pot for about 24 hours, and you ain't gonna believe the stew you're gonna get out of that thing. He just laughed. But it was, his style was so cool. Raj loved it too. But when he set his little kid up and I saw that tom, I said, man. And then I knew what he was doing with it. And he loved it. He loved it here, man. He loved playing in that studio.
Do you remember how he ended up cutting your song?
Yeah. Well, he needed a few songs, and I played it for him. And I think Jimmy played him another few songs out of the catalog, you know. And he liked it. He liked what I was saying, the message, you know. And I said, man, I know this would be great on Levon because of the message of it and how it was. I did an experiment on that song. I said, I'm going to write a song that is going to just about rhyme every line. And it did. And it was, how it came together, I don't know, but it did. And he really liked it, and he liked the message, like I say, man, you know. And when he sung it, I said, man, that's it. That'll be the best version there'll ever be of it, you know. But I was, needless to say, thrilled to death.
You wrote that one by yourself.
That Levon Helm cut one of my songs. That just totally destroyed me, man. Sure did. That's one of my greatest memories.
Yeah.
Because he was a hero of mine, man. I loved the band. I loved their whole thing, their old-timey look and their feel for the old music, you know, and just the way they approached their music. I loved it, man. Cripple Creek and that stuff, just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's like the other, like, you know, for me, it's like the Muscle Shoals thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like everything like what the band stands for. That's like my other, you know, my other thing. And I'm glad those two worlds collided a few times.
They sure did.
With Levon and, you know, and in the driver's seat.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yep.
I guess some guys, Jimmy Johnson, some guys took him out on the road for a little while too. I think in '82 after he cut here.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we got to pay tribute to them, and we got to collaborate with some of those guys, which is really great. For me, I saw Levon it must be 15 years ago now, at his house at the barn.
Oh yeah.
I always wanted to go.
And
see
I never
him
got to
there.
do that, man.
Yeah, I know.
And it was good.
But it was so good, and I stood 6 feet behind his kid. And
Oh,
just
yeah.
could really see everything.
Yeah.
And then, he passed. And then a couple of years ago, I got to play there with his band and his daughter. And that was just...
I know that was fantastic, man.
I mean, for me, that was another, full circle moment.
I know. When you told me that, I couldn't believe it, man. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I
You
couldn't
got to
believe
do
it
that.
myself.
I couldn't believe you got to do that, man.
I wish you could have all gone up there.
I wish I could have been there and to see that.
Yeah.
Several times, to hear him play and sing and
He looked so
hear you.
effortless when he
Yeah,
did it.
yeah, it did. It really did.
Just him. It was him. It was just like the music just came out of him.
Yeah, there was no hassle setting him up, and he'd get a mic, and he'd just put it somewhere around him. He'd put it where he wanted, and just sing to the left. He didn't stick it over his head or between his legs. He just had it over here.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you remember still when we first met?
Yes, I do. Out at the Hall of Fame. Sure do, man. And Bob Killen introduced you to me, or me to you.
Yeah.
Told me, where you were from and kind of what you were doing, and might want to come to town and do some recording. I said, well, I know just the guy. And I introduced you to Jimmy Nutt. And I said, this would be a perfect thing for him and Jimmy, man. Because I wanted Jimmy to make it really bad.
Yeah.
Because after he engineered it Fame some and then left, I'm going, God, what a gamble. I mean, the studios here now, they're not working. And he's going to invest and start up one. God, I hope he can make it. I just hope he can make it. And I said, anything I can do to pass on some work for him, or do anything to help him, I was wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I was so glad y'all hit it off, man.
Yeah. And
Because it's turned into a great relationship.
it's
and
been a
some
great relationship.
Great product. Some great work.
And Jimmy's doing some really, great work on his own.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's great to see that too.
Well, tell me this. I thought that the Blind Boys cut some of that album that they got the Grammy on over at the Nut House.
No, they cut it at the Nut House, yeah.
Well, why didn't Jimmy get a Grammy?
He didn't engineer it.
Oh, okay. That explains that.
Yeah.
I wondered.
He should have.
I wondered why, man.
Because I cut some sides on the Blind Boys with Jimmy engineering, not for this album.
Yeah.
But this album, they brought in their own people.
Oh, okay.
Ben Tanner and somebody else are co-producing.
Oh, yeah, Dan, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
But,
well,
he was still cut, Grammy-winning record cut at his studio.
Oh, yeah.
So that is a good achievement.
Well, I'm just very proud that they got that Grammy, man, because you got the next album.
Who knows?
Whenever you drop that's, it's just waiting in the wings.
Yeah. But I remember you meeting at the Hall of Fame, too, and then we somehow met again down kind of by McFarland Park there. We parked there, and then we ended up the day at Slim's. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then
over Jimmy Nutt's, that picture there, we took the first picture we had taken together.
That was the first session we did
That
together.
we did in Jimmy's Nut House, yeah.
And that was important for me because that was the first time I got to work with you guys and kind of learn how you guys operate.
Feel it
But
out,
also, we had a little bit of a problem, you know, when Roger Hawkins retired.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I can't take much credit, but one thing that I did that worked out really well is that I brought Lynn Williams down from Nashville, because I kind of saw that simpatico, you know, that same kind of pocket.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, let's try this because it might solve the problem.
Boy, it did.
And it did.
And I love Lynn, and I told everybody about him and everybody to use him, you know, and I turned Clayton on to him, and Clayton loves his playing now.
Yeah.
You know, and just, I love Lynn's playing, man. I'd use him on anything, anytime.
Yeah, I'll work with him tomorrow.
Oh, well, good. Well, please say hello to him.
I will, for sure.
Yeah.
But for me, too, like, you know, just working with you guys and learning from you guys, and, you know, Spooner was there, Clayton was there, Jimmy Johnson, David,
Yeah.
you, and do it all like live on the floor like it's supposed to be done.
That was fun. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
It really was. And I didn't know how you were going to approach it until we got going, you know. And I'm glad you went the way you did with it, because that was the way to do it, man.
Yeah, we cut a ridiculous, you know, like 16 sides in a couple days.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh well, you know. I always think like if I'm the weakest link in the room, I'll be all right. If everybody around me knows what they're doing, producing is easy. Producing is hard when you don't cast right or when you're not working with professionals. But if you work with great people and know what these people can bring to the project, then
it makes your job a lot easier, man. Well, I've always felt that way. Always felt that way, even when I was a singer. My whole thing was, I want to be in a band or in an organization where everybody's better than I am, so I can learn.
Yeah.
And I've always approached it that way. And I've certainly learned a whole lot from Raj and David and Barry and Jimmy and Clayton and on, man, you know, Jesse. I learned something from every single one of them that's been valuable to me, invaluable.
Yeah. And then after maybe about a year or so after we did that session, we ended up going to Italy.
Yeah, man, and I
played at Paretta Soul Festival.
If I just hadn't have snapped that Achilles tendon, but I had a wonderful time in spite of hurting so bad. When Marie said, I saw you dancing down there. That was some of the most fun I've ever had in my life, playing live, because I knew these people were loving it.
Yeah.
And I was loving it, man, and just loving being there. And I was dancing around, playing my free drums and the bongos and blah, blah, blah. And Marie and them were standing over, and she said, I saw you dancing. I was over there getting down, man, just shuffling around on that bad foot.
Yeah.
And I didn't even feel it.
Yeah.
Till the night later,
Sure.
it was all swelled up.
Once the adrenaline.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I feel like that first session was like, you know, you had like a chance to kind of vet me.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, man,
for some reason I still quite don't understand. Part of it, I think, is because Jimmy Johnson likes to dream, and like if he can see that something that's appealed to happens, he's like in.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of why he kind of gave me the, you know, just faith in me, because he wanted to see this, you know, Pareto thing happen.
Yeah, man.
But in a way, it's like I'm still a little bit puzzled that you guys kind of trusted me enough to want to do it.
Well, I'll tell you, that first session we did, nobody knew you. Nobody knew what you were up to. If you were another jive ass that comes to town, you know, with a little money and just wants to be a producer and just sit back and do nothing and let us do the music and do the arrangement, and engineer do his thing, and you take the stuff and go off, you know, into glory land with it. We knew you weren't that way at all. We knew you were for real right offhand.
Oh, wow.
Right off, because you knew what you wanted, and you knew you had some good players. And the worst that could have happened was we just didn't get it like you wanted it. But it still would have been good.
Yeah. But I think, you know, it's funny enough, looking back, how did I learn to produce records other than, like, you know, learning from you guys? But it's basically, it's like your record collection, and then like
Sure.
analyzing your records, learning who played on it.
Yeah.
And the one little thing that I knew I had was I knew your guys' work about as good as you could, because I heard most of the records.
Yeah.
And I studied them. I kind of knew what everyone was capable of.
Yeah.
So I knew with the music that I love and the music that I write, that you guys are the perfect band to bring that to life.
If you just let us go,
Yeah.
we give you what we have, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
And that's what you were looking for.
I was, and it was just great. I mean, I was like surrounded by the kings of my record collection. You know?
I understand.
I mean, it's like popping out of a dream.
I know, man. I'm still just enamored by the fact that I've played with all these great people and played on so many great records and was involved with these incredible musicians and producers and writers and people. It's just, I'm so grateful, man. So grateful that I was in the right place at the right time, you know. And if I hadn't have been, it wouldn't have happened. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have done something with my life musically, but it, you know, it just being here, man, at the right time, and it was the right time.
It was meant to be.
It was. It really was, man. And knowing the great Dan Penn and the great Spooner Oldham and the great Donnie Fritz, these three were my heroes. Always will be. And I've told them, every one, you are. They were my heroes. Songwriters are my heroes, man. And these guys were just way up here, man. And I'm going, God, I actually know this guy, and he knows me. You know, and it's still amazing to me.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people tell me, Andreas, I wish you could have seen us in the 70s, you know, and saying, yeah, I wish that too, but you know, I'm much rather being your last wife than your wife when you were young. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's like I'm much be around now, and I'm the one who actually can try to carry some of what you are into like the future.
The future, man, absolutely. Yeah, I totally understand that. You know, yeah, it'd have been great to see us back. I wish you could have seen the Soul Review. Oh man, what a smoking band.
Yeah.
I mean, we tore up these casinos down in Mississippi, and everywhere we played, we just tore them up because we had a 13-piece band. And I mean, it was incredible with those girls and those horns and terrific rhythm section, you know. And I was out there doing the best I could do, doing my thing, and it all worked out just great. I mean, we worked hard. Those shows were hard, man.
Yeah.
But I really wish you could have heard us live. I wish you could have heard the Breed when we were in our heyday, because you would have liked us. You'd have liked us doing some of those English things as well as the soul stuff.
Yeah. But you know, we got to play a lot of shows together. We got to make a lot of records together. We'll make more, you know.
We get to keep doing it a long time.
And you let me write a few songs with you.
Hey, I didn't let you. We just did it, man.
Yeah.
And I got a list. I did my homework. I got a list. I went through my book after we talked about it. I went through my book and I wrote down a bunch of titles that I had throughout my journal, you know, and I was going to let you look over them, and any of them that hit you, I want you to mark with a pencil the ones that turn you on the most, and that's what we should work on next time. Next time we work.
This one I saw right away.
What did I?
Junkyard Heart.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now there's more. There's more.
I just got through finishing. Which one is it? Oh, it's not on that list, is it? Let's see. Let's see. Maybe I didn't put it on this list because I just finished it. Yeah, I didn't put it on this list because I just finished it. It's called The Blue Side of Town. And man, it is a good blues tune.
All right.
You're going to love it, man.
I look forward to it.
It's true blues. It ain't R&B. It's just true blues, man.
Yeah.
12-bar blues. And it's that's the whole thing of it is you don't know what it's all about till you walk on the blue side of town.
All right.
You know? And it tells the story of people down and out in neighborhoods and people down and out losing their lovers and people just down and out.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you got to, if you don't really know what's going on and you think you got it so bad, just walk on the blue side of town.
All right.
You know?
Yeah. That's my kind of song right there.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy.
Just, you know, like I say, I just pulled titles from page after page and just anything that was there that may or may not turn into anything, but at least it was a list.
Sure.
You know?
Well, Mickey, thank you so much for being my friend, my
Hey,
mentor,
brother.
my
Hey, brother.
brother, my...
I love you, son. You know that.
I love you too.
You know that, man. We got a lot of work to do.
We got a lot of work to do.